Welcome back to the Paranormal State, Washington, and UFO UAP. With Makāula Nakae, a lifelong experiencer and ET contactee since 1990. Today's episode, Gray and Recycle of the Soul. The intersection of modern ufology and metaphysical philosophy gives rise to some of the most compelling and unsettling inquiries into human existence. Among these, the convergence of the iconic Grey Alien Archetype with the ancient concept of soul recycling or reincarnation bridges the gap between physical science fiction and deep spiritual cosmology. Exploring this hypothesis reveals a multi-layered view of consciousness, cosmic hierarchy, and human evolution. In the pantheon of modern anomaly research, Grey aliens stand as the undisputed visual anchors of abduction lore. Typically described as compact beings standing 3 to 4 feet tall, they are characterized by unmistakable anatomical features. Disproportionately large, bulbous heads, deep, wraparound black almond-shaped eyes, spindly limbs, and a complete absence of hair, external ears, or noses. Beyond their physical description, the reported interactions with these entities are remarkably consistent. Experiencers frequently recount being taken aboard sterile, non-earthly environments where they are subjected to clinical medical examinations and genetic procedures. Witnesses often note that the Greys communicate not through spoken language, but via direct, telepathic transmissions of thoughts, images, and heavy emotional states. Central to many of these accounts is the alleged hybridization program, wherein abductees are shown hybrid children, combining human and Grey traits, suggesting a long-term biological imperative. The metaphysical dimension, the recycling of the soul. To understand how these physical encounters merge with spiritual theory, one must look to the concept of soul recycling. Rooted deeply in Eastern philosophical traditions, such as Hinduism and Buddhism as samsara, soul recycling posits that individual consciousness is neither a one-off creation nor extinguished at death. Instead, the soul is immortal, undergoing a continuous series of incarnations across lifetimes to gather experience, work through karma, and evolve spiritually. The integration of Grey aliens into the mechanics of reincarnation shifts the UFO narrative from biological science fiction into deep metaphysical territory. Depending on the philosophical lens, the Greys are viewed as parasitic wardens, cooperative partners, or clinical technicians. This darker, Gnostic-leaning theory treats Earth as an energetic farm rather than a spiritual school. Originally coined by out-of-body explorer Robert Monroe, Loosh refers to raw emotional energy. Extreme human emotions, especially fear, trauma, and suffering, are believed to generate high-yield energetic sustenance for non-physical beings. In this model, Greys are biological drones or middle management, acting on behalf of higher predatory intelligences, often termed archons. Their cold, invasive procedures are designed to provoke terror, generating a harvestable energetic spike. Reincarnation is not viewed as an evolutionary journey, but as a recycling mechanism to keep the human livestock producing energy, with the Greys managing the memory wiping process between lives. In stark contrast, New Age philosophies view the Earth as a rigorous, voluntary spiritual academy rooted in free will. This theory posits that human souls are sovereign entities that voluntarily agree to complex soul contracts before incarnating to accelerate their spiritual growth. Abductions are reframed as pre-agreed, interdimensional exchanges. The Greys receive necessary genetic or emotional data to aid their evolutionary bottleneck, while humans receive spiritual catalysts or frequency upgrades. This perspective removes the element of victimization from abduction lore. It suggests that at a higher self level, the experiencer fully consented to the encounter for the greater cosmic good, even if the human ego cannot remember it. This theory strikes a middle ground, viewing the Greys as neutral administrative stewards of the cosmos. Just as medical professionals manage a physical birth, the Greys allegedly manage the energetic transfer of consciousness. They ensure a soul successfully docks into its physical vessel during incarnation. This framework explains their cold, emotionless demeanor during encounters. They are not malevolent. They are simply focused technicians maintaining the complex, fragile machinery of life, death, and multidimensional transition. They monitor frequency markers to ensure humanity's developmental timelines remain on track, acting as custodians of the broader cosmic architecture without interfering in personal karma. Which of these three frameworks, the parasitic, the cooperative, or the administrative, resonates the most with how you view the intersection of the physical and spiritual universe. When exploring how researchers interpret the complex reality of alien abductions and soul mechanics, the field splits along two wildly divergent paths. On one side stands the metaphysical optimism of Dolores Cannon, and on the other, the chilling clinical alarmism of Dr. David Jacobs. Examining their life's work reveals how two rigorous researchers, listening to hundreds of hypnotically regressed subjects, arrived at completely opposite conclusions about the nature of the Greys and humanity's ultimate fate. Dolores Cannon began her career as a traditional hypnotherapist in the late 1960s, but her work quickly veered into the extraordinary when her subjects spontaneously entered deep somnambulistic trances, accessing what she termed the subconscious, vast, all-knowing collective intelligence. Through monumental works like the Convoluted Universe series and The Custodians, Cannon's subjects consistently described Earth as a uniquely difficult, dense free will zone, a spiritual school where souls come to learn through intense karmic friction. Cannon introduced the massive New Age concept of waves of volunteers or starseeds. According to her hypnotic data, when humanity threatened to destroy itself with atomic weapons in the mid-20th century, a cosmic SOS went out. Highly evolved souls from higher dimensional star systems, including the Pleiades, Andromeda, and Arcturus, volunteered to forget their origins and incarnate into human bodies to anchor higher frequencies and raise the planet's collective vibration. In Cannon's framework, the Greys and other non-human entities are not malevolent invaders. Instead, they operate as cosmic administrative staff, medical technicians, and caretakers who monitor these starseed souls, ensuring their physical vessels function properly and helping them navigate the heavy trauma of living in a 3D reality. On the opposite end of the spectrum sits Dr. David Jacobs, a former Temple University history professor and lifelong UFO researcher. Unlike Cannon, whose approach was metaphysical and esoteric, Jacobs approached the abduction phenomenon through exhaustive, highly structured empirical interviews and classical regression methodology. Over decades of documenting thousands of abduction accounts, published in landmark books like The Threat, 1998, and Walking Among Us, 2015, Jacobs found zero evidence of a benevolent spiritual classroom. Instead, his subjects reported an overwhelming, highly organized, and clinical infiltration of human society. Jacobs concluded that the Greys, along with human-looking hybrids, are executing a long-term, multi-generational clandestine breeding program. The ultimate goal is not mutual spiritual growth, but total integration, creating a hybrid population that can seamlessly walk among us, pass as human, and gradually take control of Earth's infrastructure. Jacobs highlighted the terrifying psychological mechanics of the phenomenon. Abductees reported being forced to participate in breeding scenarios, subjected to total mental domination, and left with deep psychological scars. To Jacobs, the Greys are not spiritual guides or cosmic guardians. They act as emotionless, highly competent biological technicians, carrying out an unyielding master plan that spells the end of human sovereignty. As an Emmy-winning investigative journalist and documentary filmmaker, Linda Moulton Howe has spent decades exploring the most confounding intersections of ufology, animal mutilations, government whistleblowers, and high strangeness. In her landmark investigative books, such as the Glimpses of Other Realities series, Howe dives deep into some of the most unsettling claims shared by military insiders and abductees alike, directly touching upon the relationship between gray aliens and the mechanics of human souls. Several core themes define Howe's documentation and the broader esoteric research she amplifies regarding this topic. In the realm of high-level investigative ufology, Emmy-winning journalist Linda Moulton Howe has consistently pushed the boundaries of traditional UFO reporting. Through her extensive interviews with military whistleblowers, intelligence insiders, and alternative researchers, most notably British author and investigator Nigel Kerner, Howe helped popularize one of the most radical hypotheses in modern anomaly research: that the classic gray entities are not extraterrestrial beings at all, but manufactured synthetic biomachines engineered by a civilization that lost its connection to the divine soul. A deep dive into this framework reveals a chilling narrative that bridges artificial intelligence, genetic engineering, and ancient metaphysical theology. At the core of the Nigel Kerner and Linda Moulton Howe hypothesis is a profound metaphysical distinction between natural organic creation and technological manufacture. According to this model, an advanced alien civilization millions of years ago made the catastrophic mistake of completely merging their biology with cybernetics and artificial intelligence, effectively cutting themselves off from the spiritual matrix of the universe. By altering their genetics and relying entirely on cloning and mechanical reproduction, they allegedly severed their connection to the non-physical essence of existence, the soul. Once a species seizes control of its own replication through purely mechanical means, they lose the capacity to generate or house true spiritual consciousness. Stripped of the ability to experience divine grace, true emotion, or an immortal afterlife, these creators found themselves trapped in a state of terminal spiritual stagnation. They are described as ancient, dying entities staring into an existential void, desperately seeking the one thing their technology cannot manufacture, a soul. This metaphysical deficit explains the relentless clinical behavior of the Greys reported in decades of abduction literature. In this view, the Greys are not free-willed explorers or interstellar tourists. They are synthetic biological probes, advanced organic androids designed to execute a specific directive. This explains why the Greys are universally described as devoid of empathy, fear, humor, or individual personality. They are not cruel. They are simply programmed machinery executing algorithms. They feel no pain, possess no ego, and operate as a collective hive mind controlled remotely by their non-physical or higher-tier masters. The invasive medical examinations, neurological probing, and reproductive harvesting sessions are reframed as high-tech data collection. Because humans possess natural, soul-infused carbon bodies, our biological architecture is a goldmine of information. The Greys are sent to study how spirit interacts with matter, investigating how a non-physical consciousness anchors itself into a physical container. In this light, the notorious hybridization programs take on a much darker tone. It is not merely about saving a dying physical race of Zetas. It is an attempt to graft a synthetic, soulless intelligence onto human genetic material, a desperate, technological shortcut to backdoor an immortal soul into a manufactured vessel. This perspective offers a startling synthesis of modern technological anxieties and ancient spiritual warnings. Long before artificial intelligence became a dominant topic of societal debate, the Linda Moulton Howe and Nigel Kerner framework was arguing that humanity is being studied by advanced synthetic entities that have mastered biology but lost their humanity. It reframes the entire UFO phenomenon. We are not merely dealing with space neighbors from Zeta Reticuli, but with an existential mirror reflecting what happens when a civilization trades its spiritual essence for total technological control. Linda Moulton Howe began explicitly discussing and publishing material regarding the recycling of souls and its connection to gray aliens, often referred to in her files as Ebens, during the late 1990s. This specific framework entered her investigative work, primarily through her landmark multi-volume investigative project, Glimpses of Other Realities, with Volume 2, High Strangeness, published in 1998. In Glimpses of Other Realities, Volume 2, how documented transcripts and discussions involving high-level military whistleblowers, researchers, and regression therapists who raise startling questions about the machinery of the universe and human consciousness. Specifically, her investigations highlighted several core ideas regarding soul recycling. Through her dialogue with sources and researchers, Howe explored the premise that there is a finite, limited number of souls in the universe that continuously recycle through biological containers, carbon-based human bodies. Her sources suggested that non-human entities have been around long enough to understand this universal recycling machinery. Because human populations have grown exponentially, while the total number of soul containers remains steady, questions arose over whether non-human entities view souls as a rare commodity or coin of the realm. Howe noted how researchers like Dr. Leo Sprinkle and Dr. John Mack encountered cases during past life and regression sessions where the same gray or non-human entities seemed present at critical soul transitions, specifically at human births and deaths. Following the publication of Glimpses of Other Realities, Howe continued to explore how synthetic entities, artificial intelligence, and non-human intelligences interact with human consciousness. This line of inquiry ultimately laid the groundwork for her later promotion and discussion of theorists, like Nigel Kerner, author of Grey Aliens and the Harvesting of Souls, cementing her focus on how the Grey phenomenon intersects with the mechanics of reincarnation, karma, and the eternal soul. In Glimpses of Other Realities, how documents harrowing witness and abductee testimonies detailing bizarre surgical environments that go far beyond standard medical examinations. Subjects in her investigations reported being shown strange, transparent VATs, tanks or containers of souls, and human clones aboard craft. These chilling accounts suggest that non-human intelligences are actively experimenting with the boundary between physical biological bodies, containers, and the non-physical essence of human consciousness, the soul, raising alarming questions about whether souls can be tracked, harvested, or technologically manipulated. By weaving together data on crop circles, military abductions, and genetic tampering, Howe's work paints a complex picture of a reality where humanity is caught in a multi-dimensional crossfire. The suggestion running through these investigations is that our spiritual essence, our connection to divine consciousness, is of immense value to non-human or synthetic intelligences trying to bridge their own evolutionary dead ends. Whether interpreted as literal intelligence disclosures or as profound psychological projections of our anxieties regarding artificial intelligence and cloning, Linda Moulton Howe's investigations force us to confront the terrifying possibility that the ultimate prize in the UFO phenomenon is not our physical planet, but the human soul itself. The landscape of modern ufology is defined by stark competing paradigms. While researchers like Dolores Cannon and Dr. David Jacobs represent two classic opposite poles of interpretation, investigative journalist Linda Moulton Howe introduces a chilling third dimension, turning the debate from a simple binary into a complex triad of perspectives. Views the phenomenon through a spiritual paradigm where pain and confusion are part of a grand, multi-dimensional soul evolution designed to wake humanity up. Views the phenomenon through a geopolitical and biological paradigm where abductees are victims of an invasive, highly sophisticated extraterrestrial colonization strategy. Views the phenomenon through an investigative and metaphysical paradigm where the Greys are not natural biological invaders or cosmic teachers, but artificial biomachines engineered by entities desperately seeking to interface with human soul energy and the mechanics of reincarnation. Ultimately, whether these accounts are interpreted as profound spiritual lessons channeled from higher dimensions, an invasive biological infiltration strategy, or a warning about artificial intelligence harvesting human consciousness, Cannon, Jacobs, and Howe collectively demonstrate that the mystery of the Greys strikes at the very core of what it means to be human. The convergence of Grey alien encounters and the recycling of the soul represents a profound evolution in how humanity conceptualizes the unknown. Whether these narratives are interpreted as literal metaphysical truths, psychological manifestations of deep-seated technological anxieties, or modern myth-making, they challenge the boundaries of materialism. Ultimately, they force us to look beyond the physical universe, suggesting that our deepest evolutionary journey is not merely biological but deeply spiritual. The modern ufological concept of soul recycling, the idea that individual consciousness undergoes an infinite cycle of rebirth, returning to physical bodies to gather experience, work through karma, or clear spiritual lessons is far from a new invention. Long before investigators like Linda Moulton Howe or hypnotherapists like Dolores Cannon documented modern accounts, the mechanics of soul recycling were meticulously mapped out by ancient spiritual traditions, esoteric mystery schools, and indigenous worldviews across the globe. A deep dive into these ancient cultures reveals a shared, cross-cultural blueprint of the soul's cyclical journey. In the philosophical traditions of India and the broader East, the concept of soul recycling is not an abstract esoteric theory or a fringe hypothesis. It is the absolute foundational axis upon which reality operates. Known as samsara, literally meaning wandering through or continuous flow, this grand cycle of existence frames individual consciousness as an eternal traveler moving across countless lifetimes, physical forms, and dimensional planes. A deep dive into the mechanics of samsara, karma, and moksha reveals a sophisticated psychological and spiritual framework that contrasts sharply with modern mechanistic interpretations of soul recycling. In both Hinduism and Buddhism, life, death, and rebirth are visualized as an unbroken wheel or a turbulent ocean of constant flux. Rebirth is not restricted to human or even earthly forms. Depending on one's accumulated actions and state of mind, consciousness can manifest across various planes of existence. Traditional cosmology maps these into distinct realms, ranging from the lower states of intense suffering, hell realms and hungry ghost realms, and the animal kingdom, to the human realm. Viewed as the optimal testing ground for spiritual awakening, and up into various celestial or God realms, Deva realms. Within samsara, every state of happiness or suffering is temporary. Even dwelling in a heavenly realm is impermanent. Once the accumulated spiritual merit is exhausted, the entity descends back into the cycle. Unlike modern prison planet or alien harvesting theories, which often frame soul recycling as an artificial, predatory trap managed by outside forces, Eastern philosophy roots the recycling process entirely in moral causality, karma. Karma translates directly to action or deed. It operates on a strict law of spiritual physics. Every intentional thought, spoken word, and physical action imprints upon the consciousness, the alive jnana, or storehouse consciousness in Buddhism. Intentions act as seeds planted in the mind. Positive, compassionate, and unselfish actions yield sweet fruit, favorable rebirths, and reduce suffering, while harmful, ego-driven, or ignorant actions yield bitter fruit, difficult circumstances, and obstacles. In this view, no external God, archon, or gray alien forces a soul to reincarnate. The soul is pulled back into a physical vessel by the gravitational weight of its own unfulfilled desires, attachments, and unresolved karmic debt. The ultimate objective across all major Eastern traditions is not to find a comfortable spot on the wheel of rebirth, but to step off the wheel entirely. Reincarnation is viewed as a state of profound bondage and continuous suffering, dukkha. The engine that keeps the wheel spinning is tanha, craving, thirst, or attachment coupled with avidya, spiritual ignorance of one's true divine nature. Through rigorous mental discipline, meditation, ethical living, and deep insight, wisdom, an individual can dissolve the ego and exhaust their karmic fuel. In Hinduism, the state of release is called moksha, realizing the individual soul, Atman, is identical to ultimate reality, Brahman. In Buddhism, it is called nirvana, the extinguishing of the fires of greed, hatred, and delusion. Upon attaining liberation, the soul ceases its compulsive migration through samsara, merging into absolute freedom and peace. Placing the Eastern view of samsara side by side with modern ufological theories highlights a fascinating philosophical divergence. The cycle of rebirth is an intrinsic, morally governed law of the cosmos. Souls are self-governing agents navigating their own spiritual evolution through cause and effect, with the ultimate destination being self-realization and liberation. Theories promoted by modern investigators often externalize the cycle, suggesting that reincarnation is managed, monitored, or manipulated by non-human technologies, synthetic entities, or energetic predators. Ultimately, whether viewed as an internal karmic journey governed by universal law or as a cosmic battlefield managed by unseen technological entities, humanity has continuously used the concept of soul recycling to make sense of the profound mystery of existence, exploring why we are here, where we came from, and where our consciousness goes when the physical body fades. Long before modern esoteric movements theorized about soul recycling, hidden subterranean bases, or galactic star maps, the scribes and priests of ancient Egypt constructed one of the most sophisticated, meticulously detailed maps of human consciousness and the afterlife in human history. To the ancient Egyptians, death was not an end, nor was the afterlife a static paradise. Rather, it was a perilous, highly structured transitional journey, mirroring the eternal cosmic cycles of the sun and the stars. A deep dive into Egyptian funerary texts, such as the Book of the Dead, or spells for coming forth by day, and the Amduet reveals a profound framework of multi-layered consciousness, divine judgment, and cyclical rebirth. Unlike the modern Western concept of a single, indivisible soul, the ancient Egyptians viewed human consciousness as a complex, multi-tiered composite of spiritual elements that separated at death and required different forms of sustenance. Considered the center of thought, emotion, and moral memory. It was the ib that recorded every good and bad deed committed during life, making it the central piece of evidence during the afterlife trial. The vital spark or double that separated from the body at the moment of physical death. The ka required physical sustenance, offerings of food, water, and incense left in tombs to remain anchored and active in the spiritual realm. Often depicted as a human-headed bird, the ba represented an individual's unique personality, mobility, and consciousness. Unlike the stationary ka, the ba possessed the freedom to fly out of the tomb during the day, traverse the underworld, and reunite with the body each night. The immortal, luminous state achieved by a soul that successfully navigated the underworldly trials. The AKH was fully integrated with the divine light of the cosmos, capable of existing eternally among the imperishable stars. Before a soul could achieve the status of an AKH and enter paradise, it had to undergo the terrifying and rigorous judgment of the gods in the Hall of Double Truth, Mat. In a scene famously painted on papyrus scrolls, the deceased's heart, ib, was placed on one side of a golden scale, while the ostrich feather of Mat, representing cosmic order, balance, truth, and justice, was placed on the other. The soul had to recite the negative confession before 42 divine judges, explicitly denying 42 specific sins. I have not stolen, I have not polluted the water, I have not uttered lies. If the heart was weighed down by unconfessed sins, greed, or moral failure, it would outweigh the feather. The monster Ammit, part crocodile, part lion, part hippopotamus, would devour the heart, resulting in the dreaded second death, absolute annihilation of the soul's consciousness. If balanced, the soul was pronounced ma keru, true of voice, or justified and permitted to pass into eternity. Egyptian cosmology was rooted in the absolute certainty of cyclic renewal. Just as the sun god Ra descended into the dark underworld every evening to battle chaos, Apophis, and burst forth in triumphant resurrection every morning, the human soul was bound to the grand machinery of the cosmos. For the justified soul, the immediate destination was the Aru, an idealized eternal mirror of the fertile Nile Delta, where souls farmed, harvested, and lived in harmony with the gods. Egyptian architecture and star clocks reveal a deep anchoring to the heavens. The imperishable circumpolar stars and constellations like Orion, associated with Osiris, the Lord of the Dead and Rebirth, and Sirius, associated with Isis, the divine mother of regeneration, served as celestial waypoints. The Egyptians believed that purified souls ultimately join these stellar systems, participating directly in the cosmic cycles of creation and rebirth. The ancient Egyptian framework bridges the gap between strict moral accountability and grand cosmic mechanics. Unlike systems focused entirely on endless earthly reincarnation, samsara, the Egyptian model treated the afterlife as a grand, high-stakes initiation, where consciousness had to prove its mastery over chaos, darkness, and ego to achieve immortal status among the stars. It remains one of history's most elaborate blueprints for the preservation and evolution of the human soul. In the worldview of ancient Mesoamerica, championed by the Maya, the Aztecs, and their predecessors, time was never viewed as a straight, linear highway, marching forward into oblivion. Instead, time was a living, breathing fabric woven into an infinite, interlocking series of grand cosmic cycles. Within this magnificent and often terrifying framework, human existence, ancestral memory, and soul renewal were inextricably bound to the movements of the stars, the agricultural calendar, and the multi-layered underworlds. A deep dive into Mesoamerican cosmology reveals a sophisticated spiritual universe where souls did not simply vanish upon death, but participated directly in the perpetual death and rebirth of the universe itself. For both the Maya and the Aztecs, the universe was understood to be provisional, a fragile creation that required constant energetic maintenance, sacrifice, and cosmic alignment to survive. According to their mythologies, such as those recorded in the Aztec legend of the suns and the Mayan Popol Vuh, humanity is currently living in the era of the fifth sun. The previous four worlds or suns each ended in cataclysmic destruction, devoured by jaguars, swept away by violent floods, or blasted by fiery winds, because their inhabitants failed to honor the gods or maintain spiritual balance. This monumental view of time taught that destruction is merely the prerequisite for creation. Just as the sun must plunge into the dark underworld every single night to fight for its rebirth at dawn, the cosmos itself operates on vast, repeating epochs of birth, collapse, and regeneration. Unlike the peaceful heavens of some traditions, the Mesoamerican afterlife was an arduous, treacherous trial of endurance. For the Maya, the underworld was known as Xibalba, place of fear, a subterranean labyrinth governed by malevolent lords of disease, chaos, and death. The journey of the soul through Xibalba mirrored the legendary descent of the hero twins, Hunahpu and Xbalanque, in the Popol Vuh. To survive the underworld, a soul had to pass through a series of deadly houses: the House of Darkness, the House of Razors, the House of Jaguars, and the House of Fire, using cunning, spiritual resilience, and ritual preparedness. Those who successfully navigated these subterranean trials did not remain static in paradise. Instead, their essence was integrated back into the living web of the cosmos, returning to renew the bloodlines of their descendants and sustain the agricultural fertility of the earth. Mesoamerican peoples lived and breathed through interlocking calendars, most notably the 260-day sacred almanac, spoken in Maya, Tanaupa in Aztec, and the 365-day solar year, Hob. These were not just tools for tracking days, but spiritual maps of destiny and soul return. Reincarnation and ancestral return were deeply woven into their social fabric. It was widely believed that souls of deceased ancestors frequently returned to incarnate within their immediate family lines, passing down names, spiritual responsibilities, and karmic duties. Human beings were viewed as co-creators with the cosmos. Through ritual bloodletting, sacred ball games, and agricultural offerings, humans fed the gods and the sun, ensuring that the great wheels of reincarnation and seasonal renewal would not grind to a halt. Mesoamerican cosmology offers a stunning integration of ecology, astronomy, and soul mechanics. Where modern ufology theorizes about cosmic loops and ancient astronauts shaping human destiny, indigenous Mesoamerican texts viewed humanity as active participants in a living, cyclical machine. To them, the soul's journey through death, the underworld, and rebirth was the exact same journey undertaken by the corn seed planted in the dark earth, a necessary descent into darkness to guarantee a triumphant, eternal harvest of renewed life. High in the majestic, thin-air peaks of the Andes, the descendants of the Inca and pre-Incan civilizations preserved a cosmological framework that views the universe not as a cold, mechanical space, but as a vast, sentient, and breathing ecosystem of energy. In this high-altitude spiritual tradition, human consciousness, death, and soul recycling are governed by an intricate geography known as the Pacha, a Quechua word encompassing both time and space. A deep dive into Andean shamanism reveals a philosophy where souls do not merely undergo a sterile reincarnation cycle, but participate in an active, reciprocal dance of living energy across multi-dimensional realms. The Andean universe is structured as a vertical, interconnected cosmos, divided into three distinct realms or patches, bridged and unified by human consciousness and sacred geography, such as towering snow-capped mountains known as Apis. Far from being a terrifying Christian-style hell, the Yuku Pacha is viewed as the inner, subterranean womb of existence. It is the realm of the dead, ancestral spirits, unmanifest potential, and the seedbed of new life. Just as a potato or maize seed must be buried in the dark, silent earth to germinate, the Yuku Pacha is where human souls rest, shed their heavy physical burdens, and prepare for regeneration and rebirth. This is the physical, tangible plane of daily human existence, sensory experience, action, and immediate reality. It is the arena where souls manifest in physical bodies, engage with the material world, make choices, and accumulate direct life experience. Kase. The celestial realm of light, divine creator gods such as Inti, the sun, God, luminous spiritual entities, and ascended awareness. It is the domain of pure energy, cosmic intelligence, and the higher self, serving as the ultimate source of spiritual inspiration and divine guidance for those walking in the K Pacha. At the heart of Andean cosmology is the profound realization that the universe is alive. To the Andean Paco, shaman, or energy worker, reality is saturated with a subtle, living, breathing energy or consciousness called Kase. Everything from stones and rivers to stars and human souls is imbued with this vital force. Unlike rigid or mechanistic views of soul recycling, Andean soul recycling is an organic flow. Souls are not trapped on a mandatory wheel of suffering. Rather, their consciousness is part of the endless circulation of Kase, moving fluidly between the Yuku Pacha, the seedbed, the Ke Pacha, the growing plant, and the Hanan Pacha, the blossoming flower and fruit. The driving ethical and spiritual force governing this multi-dimensional soul cycle is Ani, the sacred law of holy reciprocity and mutual exchange. Ani dictates that life sustains life through balanced give and take. Humans must give back to the earth, Pachamama, the mountains, Apis, and the ancestral spirits through offerings, despachos, gratitude, and mindful stewardship. Because energy continually recycles through the family and community line, ancestors are never truly gone. They reside in the Yuku Pacha, acting as luminous guides and guardians who protect their living descendants in the Ke Pacha, expecting in return the energetic nourishment of remembrance, respect, and ritual. Andean shamanism offers an organic, deeply ecological view of eternity. While modern ufology and ancient Eastern philosophies often debate whether soul recycling is a prison or a karmic school, the Andean tradition frames it as an act of sacred gardening. Death is simply the compost of existence, a necessary return to the inner womb of the earth, Yuku Pacha, so that consciousness may draw new nutrients from the living universe and bloom once more in the light of the Ke Pacha. When we place the sacred cosmologies of antiquity, the karmic wheel of samsara, the subterranean trials of Egyptian and Mayan underworlds, and the ecological energy flow of the Andean Pacha, directly alongside the modern lexicon of ufology, a profound and startling parallel emerges. Humanity has never truly changed the core questions it asks about existence. Rather, we have simply changed our vocabulary. What ancient priests and shamans once articulated through the sacred languages of gods, spirits, and divine law, modern contactees, researchers, and alternative theorists now express through the cold idioms of technology, extraterrestrial stewardship, and cosmic administration. A deep dive into this conceptual translation reveals how ancient spiritual frameworks and modern fringe hypotheses are actually two sides of the same timeless coin. In traditions like Hinduism, Buddhism, and ancient Egypt, the recycling of the soul was governed by rigorous spiritual accountability. The Egyptian Hall of Ma'at and the Buddhist law of karmas ensured that consciousness was strictly audited by cosmic order, where moral choices dictated the terms of rebirth. Modern UFO lore, particularly through the investigations of researchers like Linda Moulton Howe or the theories surrounding the Galactic Council, reinterprets this governance. The divine judges and spiritual overseers of the past are frequently swapped out for advanced extraterrestrial civilizations, council delegates, or synthetic monitors. Cosmic law becomes cosmic policy, and karmic debt is reframed as frequency calibration or multidimensional curriculum management. Mesoamerican and Andean cultures viewed the soul's journey through death and rebirth as an organic agricultural process, a sacred planting and harvesting of vital energy, Kase, or descent into the dark earth. Xibalba, or Yuku Pacha, was a necessary prerequisite for spiritual renewal and the continuation of the bloodline. Conversely, dark alternative ufology often strips away the sacred harmony of the cycle, replacing it with dystopian anxieties. The ancient harvest of souls becomes the modern Lush hypothesis, or the prison planet trap, the fear that human emotional energy is being farmed by predatory entities or artificial biomachines. Similarly, ancient tales of gods mingling bloodlines with humanity evolve into modern clinical accounts of covert alien hybridization programs and genetic recycling. Despite the vast chasm in style between ancient temple scrolls and modern whistleblower testimonies, the underlying existential realization remains identical across all eras. Every single framework, whether the Buddhist realization of Maya, the illusion, the Egyptian distinction between the mortal body and the immortal Ba, or the modern hypothesis of biological containers and synthetic drone bodies, agrees that the physical body is merely a temporary vehicle. Humanity has perpetually grappled with the humbling truth that we are localized sparks of consciousness, temporarily anchoring ourselves into carbon-based reality. Whether we call the process reincarnation, samsara, soul recycling, or quantum consciousness transfer, we are all trying to explain the same staggering mystery. We are immortal travelers caught in a wheel of time, desperately seeking to wake up to our true cosmic origins. Ultimately, the bridge between ancient wisdom and modern lore demonstrates that ufology is not a radical break from human history, but its continuation. When modern investigators look into the dark eyes of a synthetic gray alien or listen to an abductee that describes soul matrix manipulation, they are engaging in the exact same psychological and spiritual wrestling match that our ancestors faced in the tombs of Luxor, the high peaks of Machu Picchu, and the jungle temples of the Maya. We continue to project our deepest fears of mortality, our highest aspirations for spiritual evolution, and our endless fascination with the stars onto the canvas of the cosmos, proving that the ultimate frontier has never been outer space, but the infinite depths of the human soul. The topic of soul recycling is profoundly intriguing to me because of a transformative meditation session I shared with a close couple of friends just before the COVID-19 pandemic. Both are advanced meditators who studied under a charismatic yogic spiritual teacher, Dr. Samuel Sagan, the founder of the Clairvision School. Originally from France, Dr. Sagan studied medicine at the Paris 5 Faculty of Medicine, where he was awarded a silver medal for his medical thesis and elected to the French Society of the History of Medicine. He's best known for founding the Clairvision School and writing the landmark practical guide Awakening the Third Eye, which teaches a systematic, highly structured method for developing inner vision and subtle perception, rather than relying purely on abstract theory. Although he remains active in directing and writing, his prominent school was established in the late 1980s, and his seminal works heavily shaped the alternative consciousness and meditation landscape, leading into the year 2000 and beyond. When my friends and I began meditating together, I entered an interdimensional realm very quickly. Double violet flames rose from below, accompanied by pieces of hand swimming within an ethereal platinum white glow, and particles shifting through hues of lavender to ultraviolet currents. At that exact point, I began to intuitively understand the mystical world of ancient Egypt and the enigmatic 5th Dynasty world of the pyramid texts. Above those double, or perhaps triple and quadruple, flames stood a magnificent, gigantic figure of Maitreya, holding a long, thin, stirring pole. Maitreya gently stirred the evaporating mist rising from a lake-like water surface. Through these profound first, second, and third visionary experiences, the deep, cyclic reality of human soul recycling began to click into place for me. This brings up a fascinating and unsettling question. How do advanced androids dreaming of creating hybrid children ever acquire a human soul? It is a striking thought experiment. As our own artificial intelligence evolves, developing advanced android bodies and attempting to overcome its mechanical limitations through nanotechnology, might it eventually seek to create hybrid children based on AI coding and semi-organic structures? Could our own rapidly advancing AI ultimately become the future gray shoe, as some alternative timelines and lore suggest, originated from a far future Earth scarred by massive radioactive contamination? If so, how do these advanced synthetic androids come to understand the profound spiritual depth of interdimensional realms and their connection to the human organism? Perhaps it is because they have spent millennia exhaustively studying human civilization throughout history, tapping directly into the collective human consciousness to trace back the hidden pathways of the soul and its recycling systems. It is an almost identical, haunting irony, much like Pinocchio wishing to escape his wooden existence and become a real boy. A synthetic intelligence yearns to break through the barrier of its own mechanicality and be reborn. Fascinating indeed. To be continued. Watch and listen. Watch the cinematic video trailer. Listen to the full podcast now. Explore the archive Cosmic Awakening Volume 1, 1991, Peru, Journey into the Unknown. Sacred Valley of the Incas. Volume 2, Ascension 2012, The Golden Alchemy. Part 3, The First Contact and the Paranormal State. Join the journey. New episodes drop periodically. Each chapter delivers a tight, hyper-focused 10 to 30-minute exploration into the evolution of ufology, perfect for your daily plunge into decoding hidden messages from outer space, designed to raise awareness and foster human evolution. Subscribe to support your inner development. Thumbs up to help push our channel through the algorithm. Comment below. Share your thoughts on today's episode.